Gege Akatami, you beautiful creature. A couple of videos ago, I was talking about how Gege's pace can go from 0 to 100 real quick, comparing Modulo to the original series, and well, here we are, going 100 miles an hour, so let's just talk about it.
Like, I hate wasted potential. That shit crushes your spirit. It really does. It crushes your spirit.
First things first, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Consider supporting me on the Patreon. Check out all the links in the description. Also follow my Instagram if you want to see some of my artwork and all that cool stuff. But picking right up from where Modulo Chapter 5 left here, we are seeing Maru stand up and going toe-to-toe with this Chaos User, who, by the way, still doesn't have a name. It's kind of weird if you hear me call him Chaos User a lot. Take a shot every time I say Chaos User in this video, basically. It is quite easily the most action-packed chapter that we have seen so far within the series. Easily. And once again, the comparisons between this and the original Jujutsu Kaisen series continue to roll in thick and fast. But Maru and this Chaos User start getting busy. And first thing that you should notice is Maru's eyes, two of which are closed, and obviously the top one on his forehead is open. Now, we later come to find out that Maru is actually unconsciously acting out here, which made me wonder if there is some sort of split personality going on here. I mean, this is a completely different side to Maru than we have seen previously, which then begs the question, are these third eyes on all the Sumerians, do they all represent personalities different from what the normal Sumerian is like? Perhaps it's like a yin-yang like relationship. When one is unconscious, the third eye activates. Maybe it's a species that needs to be balanced in order to maintain peace, or rather harmony, much like Maru's Chaos technique. Again, he mentioned that in chapter 1 that his Chaos technique will seek balance, and if he's been knocked unconscious, then that balance would then be disrupted, allowing his sort of dark passenger. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I do have a theory about Maru's Chaos technique, which we will get to soon. Anyway, Maru activates something in regards to his eye, and it sends the Chaos User into shambles. Now, if I had to guess and I had to speculate here, it's almost as if he is knocked out right here. Based on the last time we saw Maru do this, he knocked out a Chaos User in chapter 1 and simultaneously deactivated his Chaos technique. Now, I would be willing to bet that this is the very same thing that is happening to our Chaos User here. However, given the experience difference between these two, our old guy, he has a little bit more know-how. I mean, after all, he actually says here that he's lost control over his guardian spirit, making it just a straight 1v1. He does also stab himself through the hand here. Now, at first, I was a bit confused about this. I was a bit taken aback by this, but I would be willing to wager that this is him trying to shock himself back into a sort of conscious state, basically. You know, you get a bit of a knock to the head, you sort of like give yourself a little slap on the cheek, you know what I mean, to try and sort of wake yourself up. You see people doing it to others all the time, but this fight carries on, and honestly, fighting might be a stretch here. I say fight, it might be a stretch here, because Maru is just straight up bullying this dude. Like, Maru throws a rock at this guy, and the Chaos User actually reacts to the rock and readies to intercept it with his needle, but the rock actually swerves the needle and actually just smacks him clean in the face. Now, our Chaos User questions just what the fuck is going on, as Maru wastes zero time flying in around to his back here and trying to hit the Gojo and Sukuna kick, the axe kick here. Now, our Chaos User narrowly manages to evade the kick here. Now, I gotta say, Tsurugi mentioned that this guy was at least on par with the grade 1 sorcerer in the previous chapters here, and he's getting ran around by Maru right now, and I wouldn't kind of say Maru feels like a special grade, but he definitely isn't a grade 1 in my eyes. I mean, maybe he's taken easy on this guy, but maybe we are looking at a case here, rather than it's the collective sum of the Sumerians being grade 1 or special grade. Maybe it's a case that every single one of these Sumerians is a special grade in general here, which could be very, very insane to see if that is the case. Anyways, Tsurugi is clutching onto Yuka's body here, and he is questioning just what is going on. If Maru was always this strong, which in turn obviously begs the question, just how strong actually is Maru? But we'll get to that in a second here. However, this Chaos User is getting knocked back into a gym with basketballs and footballs and flying everywhere, and it's all while this is happening, it's revealed that Cross is actually watching Maru and this whole thing unfold as he's watching Maru goes on a rampage. Pitiful. That's all it takes for you to lose your composure, Maru. What a wretched excuse of an older brother. He then goes on to think about how this will inevitably lead to the Earthlings beginning to plot, again, with notions of war being mentioned again and again and again. Now, I mentioned this previously in my Chapter 2 review, how I believe Maru and Cross have different goals here. I believe Maru is here to sort of broker peace and find a way to sort of cohabit with Earth. However, Cross, on the other hand, seems to only be here to cause chaos, and that will obviously incite Earth into a sort of full-blown one. Again, that seems to be the case based on him mentioning that in either case, if it does come to an all-out war, we have Deborah, which is now the official big bad name reveal for this big guy that we've been seeing lurking around the Sumerians here. Now, at the moment, we are assuming that he's their leader. We don't really know how, like, the sort of hierarchy of Sumerians work. He could be the leader. He could just be someone who's just in charge, I guess. Now, as I read this panel, a thought struck me. What if Deborah isn't someone who's like Sukuna? What if we've been looking at this the wrong way? What if he is more akin to Gojo? And what I mean about this is, yeah, sure, he does come across overwhelmingly menacing. I mean, the big muscles, he's like 9 foot tall, the big horns, obviously that's kind of menacing, but you know, Gojo also could come across very menacing when he needed. Now, my thought process here lies in the line, quote, if it comes to an all-out war, we have Deborah. Now, this line reminded me of a reoccurring thematic that happened within Jujutsu Kaisen in the early days and throughout the series, I guess. A theme that our protagonists often felt untouchable in the worst case of scenarios, simply because they had Gojo there to deal with things. I mean, even back in the premature death thing, it is a running statement that Nanami even says after Haibara's death, why can't we just let Gojo handle all of this here? So this obviously led to Gojo often being treated more like a weapon than a human being, which was just something that he internalized after his clash with Geto and going forward throughout the entirety of the series. So it would be a sort of interesting flip on the series to see us fighting against someone who's more like Gojo and less like Sukuna, with this kind of like level of strength here. Anyways, while Cross is talking, we can see rocks floating around him as a result of Maru and whatever it is that he's actually doing here, which we will get to soon. Now, inside the gym, we can see that also everything is going crazy. Balls are floating, clocks are spinning, the grip trainer is going crazy and maxing out, and all while this is happening, our case user does something that I find to be the most intriguing part of this chapter, and he questions if this is gravity reversal before correcting himself. No, this technique most likely surpasses our understanding of Jujutsu. Now, if you heard gravity reversal and you hit the fucking right here, then you're not alone. You see, way back in chapter 208 of the original series, Kenjaku reveals that he's been using the anti-gravity system, but he's been using the reversal of it, basically. Now, that anti-gravity system was actually engraved into Kaori Itadori's body, e.g. Yuji's mother, before Kenjaku took over it, or somewhere along the lines. We don't know the timeline on it, but Yuji's mother regardless. Now, another Easter egg that I noticed here is what's happening in the gym right here directly mirrors what happens with Yuki and Kenjaku. Gravity, mass, time, they all deserve to be treated with the utmost of caution. Gravity is affecting the balls, time is being represented in the clock, and mass is being represented by the grip trainer right here now. But more importantly, Maru and this case user face off, and the case user here is off reminiscing about the time that he almost croaked it in battle. Now, the person he almost croaked it to is actually Yuji fucking Itadori. You can see the scar right here matches Yuji's right here. Now, I'm just going to glaze for a minute here on the series, because you know how I like to do tricks on Gege. You know how it be around here. But you know what kind of a beating you've got to put on a man for him to still remember you when he is going senile? This dude's losing his memories, and he still remembers you for putting a beating on him that bad. That's kind of insane. However, I need you all to look at this within the context of the situation. You see, this case user is fighting Maru, a dude who is insanely powerful and causing things to float, making the case user question if he is using anti-gravity, meaning it is entirely possible a third cursed technique awakened within Yuji in his later years. He could have possibly had access to Shrine, blood manipulation, and gravity, a CT from his mother here, which, if that's the case, Yuji would be very, very well clear into special grade territories here. Now, what I will say here is I really do enjoy how Gege and Iwasaki are presenting the former characters as sort of passing figures within the memories of others. It really goes to give you a sense of not only has time passed on and have we moved on from those characters, but the former protagonists have left a lasting impact on the world and the characters at large in that world, even after Sukuna's defeat. They didn't just retire after Sukuna's defeat, they still carried on and were still very active. Now, whether we will get to see Yuji, who fucking knows? I'm of the opinion that this series is probably going to lead us into something bigger, potentially with Yuji coming back and maybe taking the role of like Gojo, and then that sort of goes into the cycles of Jujutsu Kaisen. Who fucking knows? I would genuinely like to see a Yuji appearance here, but I know how Gege operates. I'm not going to put too much stocks into it because he's a cruel mistress. Man, is our Gege, so who fucking knows? But regardless, Maru and this old guy get back to throwing hands, and they seem to be throwing hands just to to the beat of the tune that's going on here. I imagine it's some sort of bleep test for the school, Japanese bleep test. I'm not really too sure. I'm not really familiar with it. Now, regardless, this case user loses the exchange with Maru using footballs and tossing them at him, and they all explode around him. Maru takes advantage of this and darts behind the case user again, and quite literally bounces a ball off the back of this man's skull, which, notably, this ball doesn't actually explode. However, Maru fucking does. He throws a nasty combo at this man, reminiscent of Yuji and the Grasshopper case, if you ask me, landing multiple combos on here before sending him packing through a brick wall into the pool outside. Now, I've said this before, and I will say it again, Yuji Iwasaki's artwork is genuinely so refreshing to see and experience, and I think he's really helping Gege bring JJK into a new light here. It is fantastic to see, I can't lie. It's also been a pleasure to colour. Speaking of which, shameless plug, if you want to see more of my manga colorings, go follow my Instagram. It's linked in the description. Appreciate you. Now, a cheeky little visual Easter egg here that I noticed was that the countdown within the gym goes from 1 to 3, but instead of the 3 being announced on the speaker system, it's actually the missing number here because Maru sends him flying through this little brick concrete diving board here. Now, as things start to heat up, quite literally, this water around the case user that he's sent into starts to begin boiling, forcing him to jump out of the water. Now, this felt like a little callback to Kashimo and Hakari, where it was cased energy raised the temperature of the water. Funnily enough, that was also another dude with 3 eyes. That's 2 guys with 3 eyes. That's 2 guys with 3 eyes who have both raised the temperature of water. That was a bit of a tongue twister to say. However, Maru actually freezes this water instantly. Now, this case user defines Maru's case technique as destroying all logic. Now, I'd be inclined to disagree. Because, you know, that's what I do around here. I disagree with things because I just like to chat shit. You guys like to watch that, apparently. But based on Maru's description of this case technique, it will seek to find balance. Now, almost everything that we have seen within this chapter can be put down to balance being disrupted, which would be, in turn, what's going on with Maru. If his eyes are open and this eye's closed, he's finding the balance. If these eyes are closed and this one's open, he is out of balance. Heavy rocks become lighter and start floating. Maru is disrupting the balance of this case user's technique. The rock Maru threw having its balance disrupted in a way that allows its trajectory to change. The air in the balls becoming lighter and floating. The PSI in the balls increasing and causing them to explode. The clock being fast forwarded. The grip strengthener being compressed. Hell, even the number 3, which Maru sends this case user flying through, is an odd number. Something that is not in balance. The balance of this water even quickly tips from boiling to freezing. If Maru's case technique is indeed him being able to disrupt the balance of things, that would be pretty fucking overpowered. Think about how he could interact with other case techniques. Hell, if he's able to dispel case techniques and just force people to fight hand to hand while he's disrupting the balance of things around him, this dude might be insanely fucking strong. I mean, hell, even Maru himself says one of the reasons his brother doesn't like him is because he's clumsy, meaning he himself is unbalanced. So it could be that Maru genuinely can affect the balance of things, which, you know, as a character himself, right now, he kind of does represent the balance between Earth going to war and not going to war. So, if Jujutsu Kaisen's original series had underlying themes of cycles, then Modulo is definitely about them being balanced, I would say, so far. From what I can see right here, that's my own opinion, so let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. But Tsurugi has to intervene with this beating that's going on, because he just says, yo, enough. Blocking a potentially fatal punch from Maru that would have basically shattered the case user in the ice here. He blocks it from Maru with the sword. While this is happening, Cross is obviously just observing the battle, and he's thinking to himself, you know, this isn't half bad. He's getting to see what the Earthlings have to offer, and he's also getting to assess possible combatant potential from Tsurugi should war arise. But Tsurugi recognizes what this encounter as a whole might entail, and it's that should Maru kill this case user, whether he's a case user or not, Maru will have killed an Earthling, and should that happen, extremists will use it as a reason for war. Now, whether Tsurugi fights to protect or fight Maru here benefits the Sumerians according to Cross. But it is here that Tsurugi decides that he doesn't want to fight with Maru. He just wants to get along with him. And he can't let this guy be the catalyst of war. It's like, as I mentioned earlier, Maru in himself as a character represents the balance between war and no war right here. Now, there's a nice little interaction here where Maru activates his chaos technique once again, same as what he did for the chaos user's technique, but instead here, because Tsurugi doesn't have a chaos technique, it sort of makes him the perfect balance to Maru's technique. It sort of counters him almost, and instead, this blast from Maru just seems to knock Tsurugi back. It doesn't knock him unconscious, and obviously it can't disrupt the chaos technique because he doesn't have one. So you can see him holding onto a sword, and he screams, "We're supposed to be neighbors." And this is obviously a callback to a conversation that happened in Chapter 4 between Maru and the Chaos User, which I suppose in hindsight is probably why Maru was beating the fuck out of this guy. I mean, last time they spoke, they bonded over being neighbors, and then he wakes up covered in blood from his forehead and is obviously pissed, so who knows. Anyways, this outburst from Tsurugi spurs on something within Cross, and he steps into the battlefield to intervene, knocking Maru out. Now at the same time, Tsurugi passes out. I don't know if that's like in tandem. I don't know if that's what Cross did here, or if that's because Tsurugi's just simply exhausted. Now, Cross's intervention here does seem to anger him. He almost seemingly sort of questions himself as to why he did it. But regardless, that is where the chapter closes out. I've got to say, Gege and Yuji have been fucking cooking lately. I'm genuinely so excited to see Jujutsu Kaisen back. Genuinely glad to be covering it. Genuinely fills me so much passion just talking about this. I also take a shot every time I said genuinely, and also take a shot every time I said KS user. You guys are fucked right now. Good lord. Anyways, that is everything from me. If you haven't already, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys all in the next one. Much fucking love. Big fucking kisses. Peace.